I hate Ottawa. I wish I had never moved here. I hate the city so damn much.
Really? I'm sorry to hear that, Michael. Why is it you hate Ottawa? I love living here.
Of course you do. But Laura, you are a boring person. This city is perfect for you.
I am not a boring person. I do plenty of exciting things. I love to go camping out in Gatineau Park, for example.
Camping. Where I grew up, we called that living like a homeless person. Oh, what a thrill. I'll never understand why so many of you glorify camping. Street people live that reality every day. Ottawa is a dull and boring city because most of the people who live here are dull and boring. It is a city whose culture celebrates aversion to risk, nepotism and mediocrity.
You are just being a jerk. Just because you are not enjoying the city doesn't mean you can insult everyone who does.
Sorry, I'm just stating facts.
Facts. More like your opinion. How about you prove to me how the things you've said about Ottawa are true?
I can prove it to you, Laura, but you are just going to be insulted.
That's just not true. I don't care enough about you to be insulted. Tell me how the things you've said about Ottawa are true.
All right. Let's begin with you, Laura. How did you get your job here at Statistics Canada?
I applied while in university and was accepted to a part-time position. When I graduated, they took me on full-time. What's so suspicious about that?
What does your father do for a living, Laura?
He works for Statistics Canada.
And what does your mother do for a living, Laura?
She works for Statistics Canada.
And what do you do for a living, Laura?
So what's your point? That doesn't mean I was hired because of connections. I won a legitimate competition to get this job.
This is common in the public service. Parents arrange for their children to bypass public competition so they can get jobs they are usually unqualified for. Hiring is based on nepotism first, how easy you appear to work with, which is code for laziness, second, and merit third.
That's not true. I have my job because I was the most qualified.
All right, Laura, I suppose it's just coincidence that your entire family also works here. On a totally unrelated matter, I have a bridge to sell you that connects London, England with San Francisco. Are you interested?
What?
Never mind.
All right, so perhaps I had a slight advantage when applying for my job. What about the other things you said about Ottawa?
Well, it's my belief that the culture of a city is determined by its largest industry. Hamilton, Ontario, for example, was a very blue-collar steel town, and the composition of its workforce affected the general culture the city took on.
What do you mean?
People would move to Hamilton for the well-paid jobs in large steel plants or with car manufacturers. These jobs required little to no education, but were well-paid. People who were more blue-collar and interested in well-paid manual labor over time moved to Hamilton for these jobs. They met one another, fell in love, and had children. Like all children, these kids resembled their parents.
I think I see what you're saying. Over time, the people who came to live in Hamilton generally came to be similar to the people who worked for those companies. What is your point?
My point is that the same thing has happened in Ottawa. Only our largest industry is the public service. Begging the question, what kind of person is attracted to a career in the public service? In my view, there are two types: the noble, who represent at best 20% of the workforce, and the sucker, or leech, who represent the other 80%. The noble is attracted to noble goals of improving his or her country and wants to make a difference in the world. They are driven, smart and hard-working. The sucker is interested in only one thing: a steady paycheck. They are overpaid and underworked. They do nothing all day while sucking the state's money away. They are essentially surviving on a special kind of social assistance.
All companies have some people like that. The public service cannot keep them all away. You are not being fair.
It is true that all companies have a few people like that, but no industry attracts them in such numbers as the public service.
Is that why you're here, jerk?
We'll get to me in a second. Stay focused. Actually, since you insist, let's get to me right now. I remember countless people who in high school near graduation, when asked what they wanted to do with their lives, would say they wanted to work for the government. They would never specify what government job, they would simply say they wanted any government job. They could have wanted to work in national defense, foreign affairs, or even public safety. The reason they had no preference was because they simply wanted any employment with the government. This is because all they truly wanted was security and a steady paycheck.
What is wrong with wanting security in life?
There is nothing wrong with wanting security. But when you are young, you should be chasing more noble and ambitious deals. These were high school students. Where would we be as a species if financial security in your late teens or early 20s was all the young pursued? We would have none of the innovation or wealth that allows us to give these people overpaid jobs with the public service.
Even if what you're saying is true, and I'm not admitting it is, how does that affect how much fun you can have in the city? There is plenty to do here.
The character of the people who live in Ottawa as a consequence of the largest employer being the public services, that they are risk-averse and conservative. If you go out on a Wednesday or Thursday night here in Ottawa, it is as though a neutron bomb has exploded, killing all the humans, and leaving the buildings intact. I asked a friend once why no one was out, and he replied, they had to work the next day. I found his answer incredible. When I worked in Toronto, many of us would go out on Wednesdays or Thursdays, even for only a while, and our jobs were far less secure than his was. Also, unlike him, our jobs did not consist of going on Facebook and surfing the net for 7.5 hours a day minus lunch break.
Your point.
My point is that the explanation for his behavior was an aversion to risk. Even though he could have easily gone out for a drink, he did not, because it was a risk. Aversion to risk and a lack of interest in adventure and excitement are two sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other. It is people of this type that are present in Ottawa in the most significant numbers. Their life's greatest ambition is to find a steady job, purchase a house in the suburbs of Vanier or Bearhaven, and reproduce and die. This to them is a life well lived. The truth hurts. Anyway, I have to go now. I am on the first bus to anywhere else. Goodbye.